Mikhail inherited the house from a distant relative whose existence he hadn't even suspected until receiving the notary's letter. The three-story Victorian-style mansion, hidden in the forest wilderness 3 hours from the city, looked impressive, albeit neglected. According to the documents, the house had been vacant for the past 15 years. Lucky me, Mikhail smirked, turning the heavy iron key in the front door lock. The hinges creaked plaintively, as if expressing displeasure at the uninvited guest. The first 2 days were spent on a cursory inspection and minimal cleaning. Mikhail planned to sell the house as soon as he settled all the formalities, but something held him back from calling a realtor. Perhaps it was the silence and tranquility after the noisy city, or maybe the strange feeling that the house was studying him, sniffing around, deciding whether to accept or reject him. On the third night, Mikhail first heard the sounds. Initially, he took them for the usual creaking of an old house, but then he distinguished a distinct rhythm, as if someone was methodically tapping on the inner side of the bedroom wall. 3 knocks, a pause. 3 knocks again. He turned on the night light and froze, listening. The sound stopped. Just branches tapping on the roof. Mikhail reassured himself and lay back down. But as soon as he turned off the light, the knocking resumed, now closer, in the adjacent wall separating the bedroom from the empty nursery. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Mikhail pulled the blanket over his head, recalling childhood fears, and without realizing it, fell asleep to this monotonous rhythm. In the morning, he carefully examined the walls. No bulges or cracks, although in places the wallpaper was coming away from the walls. When he accidentally tore off a piece of the yellowish, faded wallpaper in the nursery, he discovered beneath it not plaster, but something resembling canvas stretched over frames. Strange way of finishing, he thought. In the basement, he found a box with old photographs and diaries. Going through them in the evening by the fireplace, Mikhail learned that the house had been built in the 1890s by a Dr. Stoltz, who specialized in mental illnesses. On the back of one photograph, written in calligraphic handwriting, was "New method successful. Patient number 7 no longer screams." That night, the knocking came again. This time it started from behind the living room wall on the first floor. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, as if the sound was climbing upstairs. Mikhail lay awake, watching the candlelight shadow dance across the ceiling. The knocking approached the bedroom, moved to the wall beside the bed, then suddenly stopped. And then Mikhail clearly heard a whisper coming from the wall itself, dry, like the rustle of fallen leaves. "Help, let's out." He sat up sharply in bed, turning on all the lights in the room. His heart was pounding against his ribs. "Who's there?" he asked hoarsely, feeling foolish. Silence was his answer, but when he finally began to fall asleep again, the whisper returned, now from several points simultaneously, as if the walls were speaking in a multi-voice choir. He locked us and sewed us up inside the walls. The next morning, Mikhail drove to the city library. In a stack of century-old newspapers, he found an article about Dr. Stoltz, whose innovative clinic for the mentally ill was located outside the city. The doctor suddenly ceased practice in 1901 when 7 of his patients disappeared. The investigation yielded no results, and the clinic was closed. Returning to the house, Mikhail took a knife and, with desperate determination, made a long cut along the nursery wall where the wallpaper was already peeling away. Beneath it indeed was a dense canvas, soaked with something that had turned it into a leather-like material. Overcoming his disgust, he widened the incision. Behind the canvas lining was a cavity no wider than 30 centimeters, and inside in a vertical position, was a skeleton, to which remnants of decayed clothing still clung. The wrists and ankles were fixed with metal brackets to the inner side of the external wall, and the skeleton's mouth was open in a silent scream. When the police opened the remaining walls, they found 6 more, in different parts of the house, in similar cavities. All the walls of the mansion turned out to be double, forming narrow, hermetic chambers. Experts confirmed that the unfortunate individuals had been walled and alive. In the doctor's study, under the floorboards, they discovered a diary in which he described his revolutionary treatment method: isolation and soundproof walls for absolute rest for the inflamed mind. the diary's final entry, dated October 17th, 1901, written in a trembling hand, was, "They do not calm down. Even walled in, they continue to knock. 3 times. Always 3 times. Now I hear them even in my sleep. I fear my method has been too successful. They have found a way to communicate with each other through the walls. I can no longer stay here, but I am afraid that wherever I am, I will always hear this knocking. 3 knocks. 3 knocks on the wall." Mikhail was allowed to collect his belongings under the investigator's supervision. While packing his suitcase in the living room, he noticed movement at the wall from the corner of his eye, as if the wallpaper slightly rippled. He froze, unable to look away. 3 knocks sounded right in front of him, making him shudder. "Did you say something?" The investigator turned to him from the adjacent room. "No, nothing," replied Mikhail, hastily zipping up his suitcase. He left the house without looking back, got into his car, and started the engine. Already driving onto the road, he heard the sound again. 3 knocks on the side window of the car. Mikhail turned his head sharply, but there was no one outside the window. Only on the misted surface did letters appear, as if drawn from the inside by an invisible finger. "Thank you for letting us out." A week later, Mikhail consulted a psychiatrist, complaining of insomnia and obsessive knocking in the walls of his city apartment. But even while taking the prescribed sedatives, every night he would wake up to 3 distinct knocks on the wall at the head of his bed. And each time, turning on the light, he would catch a glimpse of something quickly hiding in the corner of the room. A thin, almost transparent figure with cavities instead of eyes and a silently moving mouth. A week later, neighbors called the police, concerned about the incessant knocking from Mikhail's apartment. When the door was broken down, no one was found inside. Only fresh traces of work on one of the internal walls and an unfinished letter on the table. "I finally understand what they want. They cannot leave without." The subsequent events were reflected in a small note in the city newspaper. The mysterious disappearance of a local resident remains unsolved. Police are working on a version of voluntary departure from home after receiving an inheritance in the form of a mansion with a tragic history. It seems a strange coincidence that the new owners of the neighboring apartment are complaining about unexplained knocking in the walls, repeating every night. The management company promises to conduct a comprehensive examination of the building structures. Dear listener, thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Many more terrifying, mysterious, and thrilling stories are coming soon. See you again very soon.